The next day was a blur for Marcy as she struggled to accept her reality while cursing the day of her return home. Nora took Marcy from place to place, such as Luna Layla's tea party, and tried to cheer her up, thinking Marcy had difficulty adjusting to life in the pack. Marcy came up with excuses as to why she didn't shift into her wolf form. She fake smiled and it all blended into fuzzy nothingness. But the truth was the knowledge that she had a mate and lost him. It felt like tasting the best delicacy and knowing it would forever be out of reach. But what other options did she have? Marcy didn't reject George on a whim. As the princess of the Red Moon Pack, she experienced independence in the last 10 years, met various people, and learned about life. She understood her parents saw her as a token they could exchange for climbing up the power ladder. They sent her to Europe to increase the mystery around her identity and give her the label of a she-wolf who knew the ways of the world. Like any she-wolf, Marcy dreamed about meeting her other half and losing herself in his embrace. The guy of her dreams stood tall and muscular, his scorching gaze directed at her. He commanded thousands of werewolves during the day and won fierce battles, while at night he tired her out in all positions of Kama Sutra. George stood tall and muscular, and his scorching gaze whispered promises of sleepless nights full of carnal pleasures. But he didn't have anyone to command because he received orders. Marcy concluded something must be wrong with George. If he stayed healthy, he would definitely join some warrior unit and not work as an Omega on cleaning duty. George would never get her parents' approval. Marcy mentally went through numerous scenarios and outcomes, depending on who her mate would be. And she knew that if her mate didn't stand out, the best outcome for both of them meant rejecting that bond before it solidified. An Omega lacked a title, position, and resources. Marcy's parents wouldn't accept him. And if Marcy insisted on staying with him, they would either disown her or punish him harshly. He might even lose his life. Alpha Edward and Luna Layla wouldn't approve of such a union because it would sully their family and ruin 20 years of investments they've made in Marcy. As the princess, Marcy needed to ensure the pack's prosperity, even if it meant she suffered. That sounded virtuous, but Marcy knew it only created a facade by her parents and other powerful individuals behind them. The truth revealed they would use any means to grasp more, and it never satisfied them. Losing a mate was devastating, and the longer two stayed together, the stronger the bond grew. Some cases showed that when one mate died, the other followed soon after due to heartbreak. Rejecting George seemed the best decision. Marcy felt confident about that. The bond remained weak, and they would survive and move on. Who knew? Maybe the moon goddess would give them second chance mates. Or if they completed the mating process with someone else, any other crushes and bonds would disappear. Hopefully. Early morning had arrived when Alpha Edward called Marcy into his study. Other than her father, Luna Layla, James, aka the brother, Beta Raymond, and Nora joined them. Based on this lineup, Marcy knew something important loomed. Panic swelled within her. Did they hear about her rejecting George? Marcy told herself to calm down. Being rejected brought great shame, so George probably didn't share that with anyone, and she kept her lips sealed. Or did someone see them kissing in the garden? Even if that happened, kissing didn't seem a big deal. Marcy already spun a story in her head about how it resulted from a dare or a bet.
"Sit, Marcy,"
Alpha Edward commanded. As she sat on the chair, he announced,
"Alpha Damon of the Dark Howlers Pack comes to visit us tomorrow. He will arrive in time for lunch."
Marcy didn't understand why that required her presence, or why it sounded so official. It seemed just a guest, an alpha. He would join them for lunch and maybe dinner and spend the day with her father.
The Dark Howlers pack stands as the largest pack in North America.
Luna Layla chimed in while looking at Marcy meaningfully. Marcy nodded in acknowledgement. She knew this. Marcy spent the last 10 years in Europe, but she remained aware of the major events among packs. Alpha Damon made quite a reputation for himself as a fierce warrior, undefeated among alphas. Other alphas admired him, feared him, and despised him at the same time, because Alpha Damon got his position very young, and he didn't take anyone's nonsense. The word spread that Alpha Damon had a nasty temper. Marcy guessed that her father hated Alpha Damon. Nothing personal, but because of the Dark Howlers pack, the Red Moon pack ranked second, and her father hated being second. Sprinkling salt to his wounded ego, Alpha Damon stood half of her father's age, so that added to it. Marcy wondered why her father smiled, and his next few words answered Marcy's silent question.
He comes to meet you and discuss with me the deal for you to become his Luna.
Marcy's world stopped. Deal to become his Luna? Luna? Like marriage Luna? And then everything fell into place. All the classes and training she took. Her parents let her pick whatever she wanted as long as she took etiquette lessons, as well as various classes related to house and budget management. It all pointed to the possibility of her parents grooming Marcy to be the lady of the house. A big house. Probably a Luna. Marcy understood that her parents worked on this for some time, maybe from the day she was born. When Marcy returned, the first thing her father asked was if she was mated, probably to eliminate any potential problems. Marcy shook her head inwardly while thinking how good it seemed she didn't tell anyone about George, and she hoped that he kept his mouth shut about them being mates, because if that had reached her parents' ears, George would face trouble. Marcy looked at her parents. From the beginning, they prepared her for this, and she knew that the probability of an arranged marriage loomed high. However, Marcy hoped that it would involve more of them meeting and getting to know each other before they discussed marriage, and not this business transaction. Marcy glanced at Nora and wondered if Nora knew about this in advance. Did it matter? It wouldn't change anything. Luna Layla smiled excitedly.
What do you say, Marcy?
Marcy grit her teeth. What kind of a stupid question was that? Did she have a choice to oppose?
I am still taking in this information,
Marcy responded ambiguously. Alpha Edward spoke up.
You have until tomorrow afternoon to take it in and adjust your attitude.
Marcy noticed his expression darken.
A lot of things depend on this marriage, so you better leave a good impression.
Marcy responded with a tight smile. How could she forget that her father did everything for his own gain? He probably saw Alpha Damon as a youngster that he could easily manipulate. It would be stupid to think that this was ever about Marcy.
Yes, Father,
was the only thing Marcy could say.
If you excuse me.
Luna Layla gave eye signals to Nora to follow after Marcy. From the day Marcy returned, Nora's job was to ensure Marcy didn't do anything stupid. This crucial time for Marcy required her to accept her reality and stay composed. That's what they raised her for.